the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun, let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chasing rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place on which our fathers died. We have come over a way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where with the gleam of our bright star is cast. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray, lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met thee, lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
On behalf of Historic Takoma and also the Recreation Department, which has helped put this event together, welcome to this 2023 celebration of Lee Jordan Day and the premiere screening of this new documentary film, They Called Him Mr. Lee. And thank you so much to Lorraine Gibbs and Camille Taylor of the God-glorified Church of God in Christ up on Geneva Avenue for opening the program and lending us your voices and your spirits. Many of you know that the Black National Anthem was written by James Weldon Johnson and his brother Rosamond Johnson. It was first performed in 1900 by 500 school children. And I hope that you allowed it to seep into your being and feel as energized and uplifted. I think it sets a wonderful stage for looking at the story of somebody who really made a difference. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. It was 3 years ago on Lee Jordan Day in 2020 when the newly formed Takoma Park African American Oral History Project, a project of Historic Takoma, presented segments from oral history and from the oral histories that we'd been doing. And then, of course, COVID intervened. So there have been some delays along the way. We have produced 2 films, so far, one of them which is called Doing Oral History, and you can see information at the back of the program about where you might see it. Was produced using segments from the oral history interviews that we did, and to really encourage people to think about conducting oral histories with people they know who have been important in their lives. And we actually produced it. The idea was to get it out and seen by school children during the pandemic, because kids who were home could pick up their phones and call, a relative, or ask their grandmother who lived in the next apartment, what was it like to grow up in El Salvador, or wherever that might be. As you'll see from the program, after watching the new film, we'll have a chance to hear from several people who are featured, whose voices are featured in the film. We interviewed 14 people, all told, and after the film, we will hear from them, and I'm very eager to get their thoughts of what they want people to take away and reflect on their experience as part of this process. And then you'll have an opportunity also to hear from our filmmakers, Ali Khan, oral historian, and Michael Fincham. And then we'll open the program up to Q&A, and it will be great to hear your comments and questions that you might have. First, though, I want to introduce Patricia Matthews. And Pat, you may come up to the podium at this point. It sounds like many people in the audience know Pat already. She is a lifetime resident of Takoma Park, grew up and still lives on the Hill, the neighborhood known as the Hill, which is Geneva, Oswego, and Ritchie, essentially. She has been very active in the village of Takoma and is now their president. And we have been lucky to have one of the first things, Denny May and I kind of launched this program at the beginning. And we immediately started looking for people in the community who could serve as advisors, help us get to know people. Pat has been a core member of this project team from the very beginning. And it's that she's introduced us to many people. It's that, of course, she is the daughter of Lee Jordan, so she has a real perspective there, and keeps us, honest and clear every step of the way. And frankly, it has her mind and her heart have been central to this process over the last almost 3.5 years now. So Pat is going to introduce the film and take it away from there. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. I can start here. Good afternoon, everyone. Tell me good afternoon. Okay. Thank you for coming out to celebrate Black History Month by celebrating someone who has left a great impression on all of our lives in Takoma Park. His life's work to help children and community has achieved positive goals that lasted in our hearts and in our minds. This documentary film, They Called Him Mr. Lee, is our way of allowing you to experience the commitment of his calling on his life. To me, he was just Daddy. But to Takoma Park, he was Mr. Lee. We hope you enjoyed the film.
Takoma Park is a great town, but it's a good place to live. How can you beat this place so close to D.C.?
When I came here, it was almost like a culture shock. Jewish families or Czechoslovakian families or people from London, England, from all over the world.
Like a lot of towns, whites live one area, and then you had spots of people who were African Americans.
to fight climate change.
It is different. When you look at all the things Takoma Park has done and changed, oh God.
Democracy! Democracy! Democracy!
It's a good place. It has its issues. Yes, it does. Like all places, like all families. At some point, you thought whites in Takoma Park back then, they just tolerated you. That's a bad word. Somebody tolerate you? Just because of my skin color? The 60s, the 50s, and on back. We had a good feeling what racism was about. But that's the way it was.
Lee Jordan was my father. He was a janitor. He was the head custodian at the Takoma Park Junior High School. At the time, that was the name. He loved his job. He did it well.
Here was a gentleman that, quote unquote, he was a custodian. Okay, some people want to say janitor of the school, Takoma Park. And you know how sometimes that stigma, there's stigmas that sometimes go with that, good and bad. There's no bad stigma with Mr. Lee Jordan. He made what he did look brilliant.
You would always think that a principal in the school would be the head guy. When there was an issue at Takoma Park Junior High, you would always hear, "Mr. Jordan, can you please come to the office?" Kids who got into a lot of trouble, they went to that office and the principal basically wouldn't deal with it. They would call Mr. Lee.
I don't care how loud we were or how noisy we were, he would walk in the room and wouldn't say a word, but you would hear everybody calm right down.
Mr. Jordan was the one who handled the problems for the principal.
You had a son that wasn't into nothing or doing nothing, the parents would turn him over to you. They turned him over to Mr. Lee.
We were breaking into the school. Breaking in there, that's what we were doing. We would sneak in, and he would be in there working, and he heard somebody at the gym. He knew we were doing wrong, but his heart was in the right place, and he just says, "Don't go anywhere else in this building, y'all just stay in there." So we'd be in the Takoma Park Junior High playing ball, yeah, while he was working. And so he would open it up for us sometimes, a lot of times, not sometimes.
It was a couple of nights during the week. We would play and he'd drop us all home, right at our doors. Wouldn't wait. He would wait until we got in the house.
That's how, to a point, he was the founder of the Black Boys and Girls Club.
He started teams for the black kids that wanted to play on these teams, which were predominantly white. He'd make sure that we would have a place to play and practice. We could get to the games. And he keep you in line, because when we act up, he tell you straight up, you're not gonna do that. You're not gonna do that, stop it.
Especially in the hallway. And he's in the hallway.
He would get hard on you, but he did it because he loved you, and those influences transferred to the young folk. People looked at us in a different way because he developed that respect, because of the way he felt and the way he thought and the processes he used to get through racism. See, not everybody used the same process. You know, I told you how I came. You know, you fight them, I'll fight you back. Well, Mr. Lee looked at it differently.
My father's from Mississippi. His whole family moved up here from Mississippi. So he moved into this area when he was a child. And him and his father built homes right behind this church. There was about 3 homes he built for his family when they came up from Mississippi. And they stayed there, you know. He met my mother when he was in 8th grade. My father went to Taft, that's in Washington, D.C.
He was an athlete. Baseball was his passion.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's showdown. Griffith Stadium is packed. There's electricity in the air.
He loved the old Negro Leagues, but he also knew, and he also had this passion for getting young men ready to grow up.
Everybody has 2 impulses in life. One is to fly like a bird and to take off, but the other is to stand like a tree in the community.
The one sound that everybody knew was Sunday morning when the church bell rang. And my father rang that bell every Sunday morning.
He took being a deacon in the church very seriously. But what he did was, he went to the little small individual churches. And spoke to them and created this black basketball league. So each church that had young men, some had less than the others and they would combine them, but we all had league play and we got a chance to play and laugh and talk and meet people.
It was kind of like 2 boys clubs in a way, some for blacks, some for whites, depends on who the coach was, you know. But it worked out.
White people started to come out getting involved in the Boys and Girls Club.
I played baseball with Mr. Lee with kids from Sandy Spring who went to Sherwood High School. And they would drive that far down because they knew they could come here and play. And there were blacks and whites and Hispanics, and we all mixed together. And sometimes there were 2 teams, sometimes there was 3.
But we used to go different places. Down in Maryland, play different teams and stuff like that, baseball, basketball.
If you couldn't get there, he'll shove you in his car. He had the station wagon and the tailgate would be down and we'd be hanging off the back of it just to be stuff us that he'd get us to games to those who couldn't make it to game, or parents who had cars but parents were working and couldn't get their kids to the game. He did it. He would make 2 trips, 3 trips, whatever it took.
And later on, the white boys started coming with us. Because really, to a point, we were the best. We were the best. Mr. Lee Jordan, in his house, in his basement, he must have had over 1,000 trophies in there that we won over the years.
Lee Jordan, he was the athletic director of the world of Takoma Park.
My name is Denny May. I have been a resident of Takoma Park for 33 years, and I read through Takoma Park's very well-organized archives online all the city council minutes for 2 decades, concentrated on the 1940s and 1950s, particularly in terms of the relationship between the black community and our city government. There was advocacy from the black community over a period of years for a playground for the black community.
Yeah, we didn't have a playground, so we just played in each other's yards. Or like I said, we played in the woods. We did things like that, but we didn't really have a place to play.
And if you read the minutes, you can see that building playgrounds became really important in the 1940s, all through town. And there are many, many examples of Spring Park and all these other parks getting a lot of attention from the city council. There were playgrounds all through town.
All the other playgrounds around were segregated, so we couldn't go.
People know Lee Jordan as a great leader and coach and mentor, but he was also a tireless advocate for the black community with the city council and within the community.
The Colored Citizens Association, they were very focused on what it is that they needed to get done, and they were persistent.
Eventually, land was found. Lee Jordan found it, and the city purchased 3 lots. And then the black community was told, clear the trees and get rid of all the trash. Now, I've been reading all these city council minutes over years. I had never seen any other community in town asked to do anything like that. Lee Jordan would come in, he was the president of the association at least for a while, and they'd pass the hat so that they could collect money to be used to clear this playground. A playground was built there over time, with the black community having a huge role in getting prepared.
We had a playground and a baseball diamond.
And we had bases. Sometimes you had line painted in, sometimes you didn't. Sometimes you played in the outfield, there were holes in the field, so when the ball was hit, you had to be careful you didn't fall, trip and fall.
Yeah, it was an actual diamond. Yeah, and they played, they had big games there.
The older guys used to pitch horseshoes there. And, while they were pitching horseshoes, Warner Williams would come up and he would pull out his guitar and amplifier and he would just start playing.
So that was our playground, our recreation center, our picnic area, our park.
It was a field. It was just the way it worked. And you loved it. You loved it because you actually got a chance to go out and compete.
I remember that was just like the place to go,
One Saturday, Mr. Lee said, we're not going to be able to play over here no more. I said, why? They're going to park the trash trucks there.
They decided to take the public works and build it on that area, so which eliminated any place that we could have to go and have our playgrounds and things like that for the black community.
Lee Jordan and a number of other leaders came in with the petition of 120 people asking the city not to do this right in the middle of the Hill community, the biggest component of the African American community. And the mayor allowed Lee Jordan and 5 members of that group to speak. That was the end of the public discussion about why the Public Works Department was being put right in the middle of the black community.
They decided to take that playground, and that was the only place that we could go to play.
So we inquired about it, and the man said, look, don't come down here. The police will come and get you.
But yeah, they took all that away, and it was a big part of us. It was really a big part of us. It was just gone. So that's when all this started. So they got together to fight this and told them, if you do take this, then give us something else. Another place that we could identify with.
Part of the deal was a concrete block community center, small one, was being built on another end of the property up there.
And so finally, after 10 years, we finally did get Hefner Park.
It's not that big a place anyway, It was nice that it was there. They put it there because, people had younger kids, they had birthday parties and stuff like that.
That recreation center was open to us for Girl Scouts, birthday parties, special events, things like that.
And you could go over there, but you couldn't have so many people in there. And we had a couple parties. The police set out there because he didn't want people to hang around and drink and all that.
Teenagers, a bunch of them never hung out there, never hung around there, because the police go right past there and they come up in there and check on it, or like drinking or smoking or anything like that.
We wanted to play baseball. We had no place to go. But we all stood out on the street and hung around. So Mr. Lee said, stop worrying about it, I'm handling this.
Mr. Lee made sure they could use the athletic field. It was not integrated. He had an arrangement with the city to use the fields. Everyone was in Takoma Park Boys and Girls Club, so they all played baseball together.
Most of the time, the boys' club is at the junior high, the field itself. The field itself, he would drive the station wagon up, and that's where we would all meet. That's where we would all meet. And so it was really neat.
I think sports brought a lot of those families together, just like it does today.
Some of his younger players who had grown up, he began to turn them into basketball coaches.
When I was 17, he said to me, he said, I have this little boys team, and I can't find a coach for them.
He said, well, I got a coach for the football team, but I knew you played. He said, can you come and just kind of organize the kids for me?
And I said, Mr. Lee, I don't know anything about coaching. He said, you played the sport, didn't you, boy?
And, you know, we're getting on into the season, and I'm just running them through drills and teaching them little things and trying to develop and turn them into a team. So he shows up with his station wagon full of football equipment. And he said, Saturday morning, have all the kids here, and we're going to all get them all dressed up. And sure enough, he had pants and shoulder pads and mouthpieces and helmets and the works.
But I said to him, I said, Mr. Lee, how long is this going to keep up? Because you only said it was going to last a couple of games. Well, I can't find another adult to coach him. So you're going to have to hang in there for me.
We got to the first game, and I'm looking for the coach. I had developed like 3 plays. We went out, we won the first game. So the kids are celebrating, went home. Next game, same thing. No coach, I had to do it.
So the season went by, we won the championship, and there was no other one to coach. So that started me at 17, started me coaching.
By the end of the season, we were 8-0, hadn't lost a game. And that other guy never showed up. I said, yeah. I said, well, you know, there's always next year. He looked at me and said, no, because I have my coach.
And I coached basketball for him, I coached football for him, and I coached baseball for him.
And so he literally walked me into coaching kids. I had no intentions on doing that. I was fresh out of the Navy. I had kids and a job, and I just wanted to do that. And 23 years later, you know, I'm still doing it.
But I just want to say this is year 32 for me, participating in Takoma Park Boys and Girls Club.
And I went on to coach basketball for like 47 years.
What most people don't know is 75% of the kids that played for us couldn't afford to play.
Mr. Lee was instrumental in making sure that everyone had an opportunity to participate. It didn't matter where you lived. As long as you could get here, you could play.
For the Takoma Park Boys and Girls Clubs, it was supported by Lee Jordan and his overtime money. It was supported by me and my overtime money. And Sam Abbott, we could always call on him. He would write us a check. But it was all individual. We would knock on your door and ask for loose change. And that's how we raised money to buy equipment. When I first started coaching with him, that first group of kids, I wanted to strangle most of them. And we had a short conversation. He said, look, don't worry about not being their parents. Help them be somebody. Every practice, we would sit and talk. And we would talk about everything from hygienes to how you should and shouldn't talk to young girls your age, and how you should and shouldn't act in class, and why if you're an athlete and you're playing for me, you don't sit in the back of the class, you sit in the front. You let the teacher know that you want an education. All of that came from the way Mr. Lee did things.
Let me apologize. The volume is all the way up on the speaker, so if you can't hear me, just let me know, and I'll try to speak a little bit louder. But I would like to welcome you, and good afternoon, and welcome to the rededication ceremony for Lee Jordan Field.
I just want to thank the city of Takoma Park for rededicating this field, because this is our dedication number 2. And I happen to be here for that one also.
What makes Mr. Jordan truly remarkable is that he started this work 80 years ago, when segregation still existed all across the country.
It was scary, 1957, to come to the big school on the hill. The first person I saw was Lee Jordan. His beautiful, you had to experience the smile.
Technically, he was a custodian, but in reality, he was a guidance counselor, a teacher, and a role model.
It was just so warming, and it just made you want to come on to school.
I was one of the people that helped keep the club going. And I never gave a second thought to what we were trying to do, but I knew that Mr. Lee had a vision, and I just wanted to help with it. And I felt he had a great vision.
And Lee Jordan stood like a tree in this community and sunk very deep roots.
He loved Takoma Park. I mean, this was, to him, there was no place else in the world. This was it.
And we see all the extraordinary fruit that has been born in the young people, in the sports that are still going on.
The Takoma Park Boys and Girls Club that he started was the first racially integrated one in Montgomery County. The same was true for many of his teams. The fact that so many people were used to seeing kids play baseball together meant that it was no big deal in Takoma Park when the Supreme Court ordered the desegregation of schools.
I guess at 55, we all just went to school. And I think Lee Jordan had a whole lot to do with that kind of integration.
He wanted Takoma Park to be a better place for everybody that came here. And that's something I'll never forget.
Our Caucasian brothers and sisters, I want people to understand that our Caucasian brothers and sisters that also helped form Takoma Park, the African American community had just as much as influence as forming Takoma Park to what it is today as they did.
And Lee Jordan was somebody who always demonstrated that competition and community have to go together. So that it's not just about who's the fastest and who's the biggest and who wins, it's about including everybody, all of us together.
And all those people contribute to the community. It was not just one person. Mr. Lee was a center point, but everybody had their own little part. It's like the cog in the wheel. Yeah, it's like that.
I was just going to say that someone asked Mark Elrich as he arrived, how much time do you spend in Takoma Park? Now, he lives in Takoma Park, and there are probably people in this room whose kids he taught at Rolling Terrace. I mean, he has a long history with our community. But he said, well, not much time. So it was very special that he managed to come today, and he's been a supporter of this project. So we're eager to hear your reactions and thoughts, but we thought we might begin by asking people who have been intimately involved with the film, and actually 3 of whom grew up in Takoma Park, lived through this period. This is, we're talking mid-century Takoma Park. We like to think of Takoma Park as a very progressive community. But hey, folks, and my mic has gone dead, Ian. I think I'm not supposed to say anything negative. So I just would like to turn it over to, of course, Pat Matthews, whom you've met, Otis Matthews, and Cedric Boatman. And I'd be interested about any comments you have about the process, about what it was like to be involved, and also about what you would like people to take away from this film we've just seen.
First, before we get started, I do want to say that we want to give honor to the 3 of our members, our interviewers, that were on the film today. They've all passed on. So that's Pete Reddix, Duncan Henderson, and our musician, Warner Williams. Let's give them a hand. Again, I want to say thank you all for coming out. I mean, you came out. Okay? What I would like to see coming out of this film is for someone, some young boy, some young man or woman, we don't care, to step up and say, I want to be like Mr. Lee. I want to be able to work in the community and pull the kids together again. We need that now. We agree? We all agree about that. So think about it long and hard. We need able-minded people that are willing to work with each other and stir up the kids in the community, because our kids are being lost, really. So Takoma Park can do this. Takoma Park pulls together everything else. Takoma Park can do this. So this is what I would like to see out of this film. Someone come forth and say, I want to follow in Mr. Lee's footsteps. And I'm sure others will follow after that. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Those that don't know me, I'm Otis Matthews. I coached and counseled here for 23 years. If you get anything out of this at all, if you would think about Lee Jordan, the person, when you hear people speak of an individual that walked the walk and talked the talk, that's who he was. And he had a unique ability to get you to do things that you normally wouldn't do. And he never made you feel bad about telling him no, because if you knew him, you couldn't say no. It's just the way he was. The man was a tremendous bridge builder. I don't know if there are any politicians in the audience and they talk about reaching across the aisles and all of that stuff. Nobody could do that as well as Mr. Lee. Nobody. And he did it so calmly, so quietly, and so easily. He made you feel good about doing what you really didn't want to do. And he always smiled. He never, and the man was my father-in-law, and never heard a harsh word out of his mouth.
the most you would get out of him was, "Aw, shucks." And then he would keep on going. So if any of you are considering walking in those footsteps, those are great footsteps to walk in. But please understand, the man took his religion seriously. He was a deacon. He was a firm follower of the teachings of Jesus Christ, and he lived that. He didn't just speak it out of his mouth, he lived it. The thought of loving your brother as yourself, he never looked out and saw people that he didn't like or he didn't want to be around. And I've been in situations where people had said things to him that I really didn't appreciate, and being an ex-Navy man, I wanted to handle it in a different direction, and he just looked at me and smiled, and he said, "Son, don't worry, it's going to be all right." And these same individuals, I ran across them the next year, and they were donating to the club. Now, I don't know what he said, I don't know what he did, but I know his mannerism changed their ways. We got uniforms and mouthpieces and football cleats and things like that, stuff that we couldn't afford. And I mean, we got him by he didn't have a truck, he had a station wagon. We got station wagon loads of this stuff, you know, and people would be smiling and happy with him about it. So I hope you not only witness the efforts of a great man, and trust me, if you knew him, he never wanted you to say that about him, because he always said, "I'm doing God's work." And I know I'm talking a little too long, but when I talk about him, I can't help it, because there's just so much. But he had that way about him. He believed, and he stood on his beliefs, and he wouldn't beat you over the head with it. But if you saw him, you knew there was something different about him, there was something special about him. And I still believe if you look up the definition of love, there's a picture of him waving at you like this. That's just who that gentleman was.
I don't know if I can say anything more after that. Now, Otis is right. The one thing you had to understand about Mr. Lee Jordan, he was spiritual driven, and he never wavered. Never wavered. I can remember one time, and Otis is right, there were a lot of people said ugly things about him. I remember we went to play a game, and we had mismatched uniforms on because the people who donated, it came from different places. So you remember that. So we would, not all the uniforms matched. And we went out, and we were so well coached. And because of his discipline, we wouldn't get upset when the other team would call us certain names that you already know about that is happening today, or tell us to go back to you know where. We just kept playing, and we would win. Then they get mad, and they don't let them, you know what, come back here again. And Mr. Lee, and we want to erupt. And one time I wanted to, Mr. Lee said, "Cedric, no, that's not the way we handle this." So I just shut up, got in the car, sat on the tailgate actually, and he took us home. But that's what he was. When I came home from college, I was like Otis. I had no plans of playing coaching. I played college ball. I played my scholarship. My brother and I, we went to college on scholarships. My brother on football, me on basketball. And that's how we got our education. We made it through. And I was going to go play some semi-pro. I had no idea that I was going to coach. Mr. Lee, I was actually at my parents' house. Mr. Lee driving up, "Cedric, how you doing?" "I'm doing fine." "You finished school?" "Yes." "And Mr. Lee, I'm getting ready to have a job." "Well, I need a referee." Never forget it. Oh, God. A referee do what, Mr. Lee? "Well, we don't have any refs. We started this league right down here next to this school, Piney Branch Elementary School, that gym with the new pool in it. We started this league. I need you to come down and referee." I said, "Mr. Lee, I'm not a referee. That's all right. I'll send you to a camp or whatever. I just need you to ref." And Otis is right. I didn't say no. And then I ended up reffing Then he got me to coach. And then after that, I ended up later on in life, coached 12 years at Bullis to one of the best seasons their girls' basketball teams in 12 years ever had. And then went on to go back to my alma mater 10 years later and coach the boys at Blair. His influence was just crazy, but he knew how to reach young folk, older folk. He just had that capability, and that's what made that man so special. And when I looked at this is the first time Otis and I have even looked at this. We had never seen it before, and I'm so proud to be a part of Mr. Jordan's life. That man was so super. And I'll never forget talking about the tailgate. I am Cedric Boatman, and I'm proud child of Mr. Clarence Boatman and Montez Boatman that lived right there, 133 Ritchie Avenue. My father was your precinct chairman for District 20 for 25 years. So a lot of people. So a lot of politicians, past and present, went through my father's house looking for that black vote. Trust me, I've seen them all come through sitting in the living room. And Van Hollen, I ran into him, I guess about 2 years ago, right before the pandemic. He was at one of our schools, and I ran into him. He said, "You Cedric Boatman?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Clarence Boatman's son?" I said, "Yes." And then he goes on. And then Mr. Lee Jordan's name comes up about how when my father, he would get his car, ask Mr. Lee to get his car, and we'd be piled in to deliver the flyers for all the politicians. It didn't stop with Mr. Lee Jordan at all, from politics to sports, but the biggest thing was his salvation. And I give Mr. Lee, I've never told this, and a lot of people don't know, I'm an ordained elder. I've been that for 20 years for the Presbyterian USA. And it was because of Mr. Lee. Because of Mr. Lee, and I thank him.
Can I say something real quick? Thank you, Cedric, and thank you, Otis, for what you had to say. I'm having a senior moment. So I'll remember in a minute.
You got it. Yes, and I'll hand it back to you as soon as I have mine. Okay. I think you heard from Otis and Cedric and Pat, and you got the sense of it in the film. We have hundreds of hours of people sharing their experience growing up in the black community in Takoma Park. And the reflectiveness, the generosity, and openness. I had the opportunity to sit in on many of the interviews, and really it was a huge gift and one of the most wonderful experiences that I have had in all my years here in Takoma Park. I sent the film a few weeks ago, before Black History Month, to Tracy Oliver Gary, who is the superintendent. She's the supervisor of K through 12 social studies for Montgomery County. And I sent it to her, and I hoped I'd hear from her in the next week or so. The next day, she wrote me, and she talked about how she wanted to use the film, how she was going to circulate it for Black History Month among about 200 educators, and use segments of it later on with different levels, beginning next fall. And what she said was, one of our goals for social studies is to create change makers. And Lee Jordan is a fabulous model for change making. And I think it is, in a way, up to all of us to look around, and we see issues around us. We see that somebody should get involved. And sometimes it's very small. But here was someone said to me after seeing the film, he was a great visionary. And perhaps he was, but I don't think of him quite that way. I think of him as someone who looked around, saw what needed to be done, and took action to remedy, to make something happen. And that's really pretty remarkable. I'm going to hand it over to Ali Khan and Michael Fincham, without whom we, and it happened that they live across the street. Well, just Denny May and I lived across from each other. Denny and his family have moved to Vermont, but he's still very much in touch. And Ali and Michael lived also on Willow Avenue, and we immediately thought of them. And Ali has had a tremendous amount of experience doing oral histories, oral history interviews. She's had some wonderful publications and brought so much, I think, to this whole process, and her ability to make people feel comfortable, to encourage people to talk. And in fact, she had the most to do with making the film that I mentioned earlier, doing oral history and introduction. And you've got the information about it on your where you can see it on the program. So Ali, maybe you could say a few words about this process. And Michael has made many documentary films, and putting all of this together into a 30-minute program. At first, we were going to do 4 or 5, 8-minute films, because we had heard from social studies teachers, hey, make it really short. But, here, it was really important to tell the story. And this is and Michael made this happen. And it's been a gift to be able to work with them and have the involvement of these people on the stage and others. So take it away.
Hello. Okay. Well, I just want to say what an extraordinary privilege it is to have been a part of this project and all of the oral history projects that I've worked on. Usually, I'd say probably in all cases, the interviews that I do are one shot. So there's an awful lot of responsibility to sit down with a stranger and establish a reciprocity of trust and respect, so that somebody will open up and confide in me, and so that we'll have a really meaningful conversation. There's always an urgency behind projects like this because, as Pat mentioned, we've already lost 3 of the people. So, there's always this sense of, oh, you should have been here last year to talk to so-and-so. And so it's like a wake-up call to remember to talk to your elders, or if there are stories that you want to document. I mean, I always wish that, my sister's in the background back there, I always wish that we had talked to our grandparents who came from Eastern Europe and get their stories, because then it's too late and we don't know. But the whole process of oral tradition has been going on for centuries on nearly every continent on this planet, and this is how communities preserve their traditional knowledge, their traditional ways. It's the elders who this is unwritten knowledge, and it's all preserved in memory, and it depends on the oral transmission from one generation to the next. And if there isn't that transmission, then you lose the link in the chain, and the chain is broken. So this process of doing oral history effectively functions as a vehicle for documenting and preserving this lived experience, so that it can be accessible and teach all of us, people who are living now, but also for future generations. So anyway, I just want to thank all of you. And Pat, did you remember? Oh.
You think I remember that? No, I was just going to say something about what Ollie was saying. We're getting ready to start our next project. We need your help. We need you to go back and get out those old albums, those old pictures, and please get in touch with us. We want to involve as many people in the community that grew up in this community to have a part of this. This was wonderful. These are the two films, and trying to get it together and meeting with the people and talking to them and seeing their photos and things. But we need more people to try to be involved in this. If you can, please, pull out your albums. We want to see you when little Bobo was running around. We want to see all that stuff, okay? And we'll set up an interview with you and meet with you, because we can only tell our story. And we need to pull together and get this story told, okay? That's it.
Why don't you pass it down to Michael?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And maybe you could just say a word about what the next the film we're working on right now is about. Again,
You say what you're going to say.
Let me say a few words about this film, because it was a real process of discovery for me. I grew up mostly in Hyattsville, and then as a young man, and then moving to Takoma Park about 25 years ago.
27.
Doing this film, I've discovered so much about Takoma Park, and I discovered, especially with this film, I discovered a lot about myself. One of the things I discovered is that a number of the men I interviewed were in my age group. Cedric's too young, but and I think Otis is too, but they were playing boys club basketball in the same era I was playing boys club basketball and baseball in Prince George's County. I played all these years in Hyattsville, teams in Hyattsville, University Park, Green Meadows, which is right down the road. I never got to play on or against an integrated team. And yeah, when I was playing in Prince George's County, during my era, the boys club leagues had only all white teams. And why? Because there was no Lee Jordan in Hyattsville, in University Park, or Green Meadows. When we interviewed Sam Reddix, he talked about the white players joining the black boys clubs. And he talked about all the trophies the teams won. He said we were the best, and he was probably right. But I thought about my basketball team from Green Meadows. And that last year we won every game we played. And then we won the championship of all white Prince George's County. Can I say we're the best when we never played against teams with Sam Reddix or Duncan Henderson or Otis Matthews or Cedric's too old, too young. But from those interviews with these players, I couldn't help thinking, why didn't we get a chance to play with these guys or against these guys? Were they the best? Were we the best? Nobody will ever know. Sam has passed on. Duncan has passed on. But we were the losers because of what we missed. The life experiences of a teenage boy playing sports. We missed the key element of that because we had no Lee Jordan. Thank you.
So we're working on the third and final film of this series, which will be essentially an overview of the community, where we'll talk about the immigration story, how that fit into the Great Migration from the South, where people settled here, talk about the church and the school, the experiences of segregation and integration, and community life. And so that should be really, really interesting. But I will just emphasize that we are desperate for B-roll, which is still photos, and it's more interesting than just looking at headshots, so people talking. So we urge any of you, especially in the Black community who grew up here, that look in your shoe boxes, look wherever you might have a stash of photos, and I think the easiest way to contact us is through Historic Tacoma, and then just mention that you found some images that might be useful for the Oral History Project. And don't worry about whether we might be able to use them or not. Just, we'd be happy to just come over and look at them, and we'll make the decision, because maybe that you might not think something's valuable, but we would see it differently. So anyway. Oh, sorry.
There's been a lot of talk about the old rec center that was open to whites only until 1961. A lot of discussion of that. Not one existing photograph. Somebody somewhere has a photograph of that. We have one photograph of the Parker Memorial Church. It's not the greatest photograph. I suspect some of you have photographs where the church is in the background. Maybe you're in the front and they're in the background. Photos of the church, the school, the institutions that sort of were the center of the culture for much of the community in those days. I would love to find those. And they are sort of essential. It's hard to talk about something. In this case, you watched the film in which we talked about the black playground. There were no pictures of the black playground. None.
If you have questions or comments, please come up and share them with us.
Is this baby on?
No. Ian, is this mic on? It should be now. Yes.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for the reaction you gave my sister, Kay Daniels-Cohen. Thank you so much. It means so much. And I have a feeling that she knows. I really appreciate it. Now, I'm going to be very brief. Okay. I just have a few minutes.
Yeah, oh, buddy.
One page. My name is Buddy Daniels, and I've lived in Takoma Park for 71 years. My mother was Opal Daniels, and my sister was Kay Daniels-Cohen. I would like to thank all of those involved with this program for including my sister Kay Daniels-Cohen's comments in their presentation. Now, I can tell Lee Jordan stories just like everybody else in this room and all over for hours and have in the past. But you have done such an incredible job in 32 minutes. You have captured and explained the essence of Lee Jordan, of Coach Jordan, and the tremendous influence that he had with all of us who knew him. My sister said at the September 2013 rededication of Lee Jordan Field, he was a magnificent human being. And you know what? I can't say it any better. I just can't. He was an incredible, magnificent person who we were all so lucky to know.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks very much.
My name is Caroline Pauls, and I've been a member of this community for over 50 years. Mr. Jordan had a great impact on my family and my generational family, not only my children, but my grandchildren. Mr. Jordan, as they say, he was a very quiet man, but he had limits. He taught standards, and standards were that if you did not have good report cards, if you did not attend school and stuff, you could not play on his team. And so those are some of the standards that he set. Also, as a Christian man, when I decided to look for a church, and this was in my later years, I wanted to find the church where Mr. Jordan was, because he was the one that had done so much for my sons. I was a single parent, and my sons, we used to come up on Saturdays, and the field that they did get, we would sit out there, all the parents would sit and watch their children play, which gave us all a sense of community. That's what Mr. Jordan taught, a sense of community. Thank you.
First, giving honor to our Lord and Savior, I want to, of course, acknowledge Mrs. Matthews. I call him Coach Matthews and Coach Bowman. My name is Michael Pauls. I've had the privilege of knowing Mr. Lee. He was a quiet man, but he carried a big stick. He had that stick everywhere he went. He carried that stick, and it was used as a sense of correction when it was needed. And I want to say to you, Miss Matthews, I've got about 2 more years before I retire from the military. I've got over 40 years now of service. I'm serving now in Tampa. I just happen to be here, and I'm thankful to be here during this time. But when I retire, if nobody has stood up, I make a commitment to you, to Otis, and to Bowman, that I will be that one. That I will serve in any capacity that I can. My sons went through Takoma Park Boys and Girls Club. I went through it. And my brother. So I'm connected. I've been here since about 1973 is when we came. And so I still live in Takoma Park. I will always have a residence here in Takoma Park. No matter where I go, this will always be home. So when I retire, as a matter of fact, I'm planning on, because you made that call, I was going to serve until active duty until 2027. But I can change my status in 2025 when I get my full time, and I will stop and come home and serve here.
From a song by Cy Khan. This word, custodian, it means to take good care when something might have hurt the kids. Well, I was there. For any troubled kid, I was their right-hand man, the school custodian, there to lend a guiding hand. When those who only live for profit work to tear this country down, all we have to stand on is our common ground, and only we can find our way back from here, for we are all custodians of all that we hold dear.
All right. Thank you so much, Saul. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shana Fulcher. I'm a Girl Scout leader, and also I'm the Ward 1 City Councilwoman. But I wanted to ask Mr. Matthews and Mr. Boatman, if there are any young people that you have worked with that you see continuing the legacy that you two, were carrying on Mr. Lee's legacy, and if you saw it go any further, if there's any particular interactions that meant a lot to you, as I'm very fortunate that someone else, a similar sort of mentor, asked me to step into Girl Scouting, and there's lots of Girl Scouts that have really touched my life, and so I wondered what your experiences were.
Can you hear me? Yeah, pick up the mic, please. Anyone?
Hello? There we are. There's a young man with a gray beard in the back. If you see him without his beard, he kind of looks like me. Stand up, Ben. Yeah.
All right.
True, he's not coaching here at Takoma Park, but he played at Blair. He coached at Blair for 7 years. He's now coaching in Flowers. He and his wife are entrepreneurs. They have their own business. They're working well. That's Lee Jordan's grandson. And he tells me this all the time about the things I've done, and I don't even think about it, but I see it when I watch him and how he works with kids. And Mr. Lee never talked about championships. He talked about developing young men to come in and be solid citizens. A solid citizen works, pays their taxes, respects their neighbors, keeps things in order. When they see something going wrong, they're not afraid to stand and say, this needs to be done. And we're trying to raise the grandkids who are sitting beside Ben in that same manner. So yes, Mr. Lee passed it on to me, and I've in sense passed it on to my son. And hopefully, I got a grandson back there, and hopefully Jeremiah, once he graduates from college, if he's not doing anything else, I would love to see him being involved like this also.
Thank you.
Like Otis, I have a son, Corey Boatman. Ben knows him well. They both coached together at Blair. Corey's moved on, and now he's coaching and developed his own business in coaching. He works for Amazon to pay his bills. He's doing very well there. But that coaching aspect that Mr. Lee put in me, I passed it on to my son, and also the assistant varsity coach at Blair now, and 2 other coaches there. I've passed that on to them, and they're active in what Mr. Lee has given us.
That's fantastic. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Talisha Searcy, and I am the mayor of the city of Takoma Park.
That's right.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Historic Takoma and all of you, all of those that are here and have gone, who shared the story of Mr. Lee. One thing I'm taking away is don't take no for an answer, right? It is so critical at this time, and I just want to echo the need for the Mr. Lees to rise up in our community. You know, we talk about how we're experiencing things like increases in crime and challenges in our community due to our youth. Our youth are crying out for more leaders in the community to help guide and mentor and comfort so many people in our community, so many kids in our community that are looking for those role models. So I really, really, really want to encourage each and every one of you to just donate a little bit of time. Volunteer a little bit of your time. We have opportunities in this city. I'm looking at folks that volunteer with Lunch and Learn. There are people who volunteer with the rec center. We can start new youth activities in our community, but we need you. We really need you. And however you may volunteer your time, your talent, or your money to help these different organizations that are really trying to transform the lives of the youth in our community. I really want to encourage you to do that. And so again, I just can't echo enough how appreciative I am for Historic Takoma and for all of you and all of the work that you're doing to solidify the history of our community, because if you don't know your history, you're destined to repeat it. So that we can all learn. I thank you so much for your sacrifice. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Searcy. We just have just a few minutes, and so because we have to clear out of this room by 5:30. So please do come to the mic, and thank you.
Thank you. My name is Calvin Coleman. It's such an honor to be here to honor a legend, Mr. Lee Jordan. I moved to Takoma Park in December 1968. My family moved from D.C. here. And I became a member of Takoma Park Boys Club in 1970. I see 2 of my coaches right here. Oldest coach of the year, basketball. And said, our football coach used to laugh at us. He had a younger cousin played for Silver Spring. Said he's gonna run all over y'all. Troy Gaither, I believe that was. Yeah, but Mr. Lee, he took me in as one of his grandkids. My dad passed when I was 14, but Mr. Lee, he was a dad to me. But I want to say, Otis, I really appreciate all the hard knock lessons you gave us and said,
I appreciate your time and your effort. Yeah, and I thank God for Mr. Lee.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for staying. My name is Sandy Jordan. I'm one of Mr. Lee's grandchildren. I just wanted to have his grandchildren stand who are here. Some of them have left. Joanne Powell, Benjamin Matthews, Andy Powell, my sister, who you all may know, Joy Jordan. Okay, I just wanted to recognize all the grandkids, great-grandkids, great-great-grandkids. I really, this is my second time coming. Mr. Jordan, Lee Jordan, we call him Daddy, okay? He had 5 children. That's the only living one, our Aunt Patricia. He instilled in us sports. All of us played sports in school. Our children played sports in school. We donate our time to the community, which was instilled to us. We learned by watching. He showed us. Wasn't nothing, he just pretty much, everywhere he went, he would throw us in the back of the station wagon as well. So it's just an honor. We just want to thank everybody. The biggest thing for me is the Christ-centered as well, because we are all Christians. We're embedded in our church some kind of way. It's just great that all of you all come to honor our grandfather. He also he did something. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to stay too long, but he took in 5 of his grandchildren because our father had passed, and just to raise, he'd already raised Patricia, her generation, so to raise another generation, that's a big task. He did not have to do that. He's going to be our grandfather anyway, but that was more. And it just meant the world to us, and we just are so thankful. And I thank everybody, everyone on the panel for everything. And I also have those pictures that you're talking about, the groundbreaking, the church, my her sister Dolores. I have all of her pictures. She has all of those things, the groundbreaking for. Yes, I have all of them.
You're wondering where
I have
they were.
the field before it was dug up, before it was named. So I'll be emailing those and be in touch with you. Thank you.
Is this live? Yes. Thank you so much for coming. Go forth, take this story and this example, and let's take hold wherever we are and make a difference. Be change makers. And yes, and look around, think about people who've been big influences on you, and people in your families, and start to think about how you can capture their stories and preserve them. It would be a great gift. Thanks a million. Have a great evening.